In many ways, it was the culmination of one embarrassing journalistic era and the beginning of a new, even more alarming one. The New York Post, the oldest newspaper in America, which was founded by the suddenly cool again Alexander Hamilton, splashed a giant scoop on its tabloid front page on the morning of October 14th, 2020. Biden secret emails. The cover promised exclusive details over a several-page spread. While a New York Post cover may be one of the last vestiges of old print media relevance, the current medium of power for the modern media is digital. The New York Post's web story was headlined, "Smoking Gun Email Reveals How Hunter Biden Introduced Ukrainian Businessmen to VP Dad." It was the first of what would eventually be several stories by the New York Post, then the Daily Mail, then other outlets, based on what is now known as Hunter Biden's laptop. Entire emails were published, but the sourcing was unquestionably sketchy. The owner of a Delaware computer repair shop told the Post that a customer brought in a water-damaged MacBook Pro for repair and never picked it up. Then it was turned over by the repair shop owner to the FBI in December 2019, according to the Post, and a copy of the hard drive was given to former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Robert Costello. The Post got a copy of it after first hearing about it from Steve Bannon in September 2020, and then being provided it by Giuliani shortly before publication. You could then perhaps understand how national media might tread lightly into this particular story rather than rush to aggregate the Post's reporting without verifying it themselves. A presidential election was about to take place in mere weeks between Hunter's dad, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump. But treading lightly was very different from how the story was handled by the press. Instead, what took place was perhaps the most egregious and obvious example of the elite censorship collusion racket between tech companies, government forces, and the national media that we've ever seen. Almost instantly, Twitter, media members' favorite social platform for talking and listening, often to one another, made the link to the New York Post's exclusive inaccessible to be shared publicly or privately through direct messages. Twitter explained this unprecedented action as a response to its hacked material policy, assuming, or perhaps concluding, the material the Post published had been obtained through some sort of hack. Meanwhile, Twitter locked the New York Post out of its account until it deleted its tweet linking to the report. In fact, it locked other blue-check journalists, verified users with a checkmark next to their Twitter account name, until they deleted their tweets linking to the article. The journalists were far more willing to comply. I tweeted a link to the New York Post story right after it dropped yesterday morning. I immediately reached out to the Biden campaign to see if they had any answer. I wish I had given this story a closer read before tweeting it, tweeted reporter Jake Sherman, then of Politico. My goal was not to spread information, spelled OIN. My goal was to raise questions about the story, as I did in subsequent tweets, and see how the Biden campaign was going to respond. They later did respond. He continued, "My account is clearly no longer suspended. I deleted the tweet." You can see the utter panic from Sherman's tweet with the spelling and capitalization issues. He dared to link to the New York Post, the horror, and couldn't tweet for a little while. Facebook took similar extreme actions against the report. Andy Stone, a comms exec at the company who previously served on Democratic staffs, tweeted the company would be reducing the reach of the story, reducing the spread of the story in advance of a fact check. While I will intentionally not link to the New York Post, I want to be clear that this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party fact-checking partners. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. That sentiment was shared by journalists, too, who urged others to pretend the article simply did not exist. Kyle Griffin, a prolific tweeter who moonlights as a top producer of MSNBC TV shows, tweeted, "No one should link to or share that New York Post report. You can discuss the obvious flaws and unanswerable questions in the report without amplifying what appears to be disinformation." Ignore the story, directed Griffin. Linking to the New York Post would be amplifying potential disinformation. This was the instinctual response of a media community that had become conditioned over the past few years to suppress anything that could potentially help a figure and political movement it deemed to be unacceptable and an existential threat to democracy itself.